Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this Newmarket School Board meeting, February 7, 2013. I'd like to call the meeting to order, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Emma, would you mind leading us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'll continue by reading our mission statement. The Newmarket School District is committed to the highest standards of quality education. We ensure a safe and successful learning community. We embrace diversity and respond to the social, emotional, intellectual, and physical needs of every child. We strive to work with the broader community to ensure that students develop lifelong skills, enabling them to be contributing and productive members of society. Thanks, folks, for coming, and I'm really looking forward to this meeting just because of the recognition that we start with this evening.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Absolutely.
All set?
So yeah, let's continue with that.
We're here to recognize a member of the Newmarket Elementary School. So I've asked Principal Tom Higginbotham to come up and kind of introduce the topic, and
Sure.
and then we'll go from there. Why don't you?
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, we had the script spelling bee, our local school version of that, and that's 4th and 5th graders, and that's the one they see on ESPN. And the folks who you see on ESPN are the ones who have won their school event and then gone on to state, and then if they do place well at state, then they go to the one on ESPN. And so we're hoping to have someday, if not this year, one of our students do that. But it took, I think it was a record 22 rounds of spelling, and boy, it was back and forth, wasn't it? There was some, it was very exciting. Jim came in and he told me later how exciting it was, and I had a lot of people saying, "Oh my gosh, those," because it was Davishi and another young man for, I think it was probably, you guys did what, 8, 9, 10 rounds together where there's just the two of you, and then they'd get to the final word, and then there was a misspell on the final word, and that happened a couple times, so it was very exciting. But anyway, on the word succumb, we had our winner, Davishi Shah, and so come on up. Congratulations. Did you want to spell succumb? Oh, you do? Okay.
All right.
Okay. Succumb. S-U-C-C-U-M-B. Succumb.
Yes, nice job. Thanks,
All
Davishi.
right.
And so Davishi will be competing for at the state competition. What is that? March 2nd. At March 2nd, so she will be representing our community. So big congratulations to Davishi. Yes.
Great job.
Oh,
That's right.
a picture with all of us and Davishi.
There we go. Nice job.
Okay, we'll take a 5-minute recess so you can congratulate her personally, if you like.
I could, yeah. I think I can. It's just,
Yeah.
you know, it's yeah.
I can spell, but even get in front of people.
Succumb is pound.
I have a word for each of you.
I always go
Oh.
to see.
Then we will be doing that in non-public. then.
Okay, fun.
All right.
Thank you.
Excellent. That was great to have those folks there. Thanks.
I always enjoy that.
Thanks for arranging that to happen. That's just terrific. All right. This is the point in the meeting that we always have for public to make comments. If anyone were to wish to do that, this would be the time.
I'm Karen Paul Zanetti, and I live at 8 Stonewall Way. And I just wanted to hope that you guys could think about or reconsider. I know from the deliberative session that we were able to add $70,000 back in, which I know has nothing to do with the 5.5 positions that were cut. However, I think we've heard an outcry for the enrichment program. I do feel comfortable and confident that every other program can kind of be absorbed within the system, but the enrichment program, I think, is something that the kids really, really need. It's just not a certain child. We really look at the one end with the special needs children, and I think that there's a lot of kids left out, whether they're in the enrichment program or they could be in the enrichment program if we had a bigger and better enrichment program. And I think by cutting that, it's sending the wrong message to the kids. I think it's sending the wrong message to our entire school system as we're trying to bring our kids up. So I'm just really hoping, I think that's the one position that everyone out there has really stood up and spoke for and wants to fight for, that there's any way that you could relook in the budget and try to get that position or program back in to the curriculum. I think that would be great. So that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thanks very much. All right, I'm not seeing any others for comments. Thanks for sharing that. We'll move on to minutes. Is there a motion regarding January 17th minutes?
Make a motion to accept the January 17 minutes.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Mm-mm.
Anything? Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. We did not have non-public that evening.
Nope.
January 22nd.
I make a motion to accept the minutes from January 22nd.
Any discussion from that meeting?
Nope. That was a late night.
Yes, it was.
I was excused from that night.
Yes. And good we have you back, Jack.
Yes, welcome back.
Hearing no comments on that, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And one abstention. Motion carries. With a quorum.
He actually was here. He participated by telephone. Does that matter?
It's in the minutes that way. But
Okay. But that's okay.
I don't think he gets, I don't know if he gets listed as present in that list. I wasn't sure as I wrote it up.
That's fine. I mean, doesn't
Maybe you're right.
I mean, he's mentioned in the minutes about
Right.
voting, stated that he would be voting against them, you know, so it just,
Yeah, I took the word present literally as in the location.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
why I
that's
did it that
probably
way.
okay,
Okay.
it's good.
All right. Moving on then to committee reports. Emma, what's going on?
Well, first, the boys' basketball is 13-1, and they play against Newt tonight at home. And the girls, which are 10-5, play against Newt, but at Milton. The Chili and Chowder Fest has been moved because it was supposed to be tomorrow because of the storm. It's now Saturday, February 15th, from 5 to 7:30. and it supports the 8th grade DC trip. It's $6 per person and $4 for children 6 to 12. Bingo has also been moved to the same day, February 15th, from 11:30 to 3. We'd like to congratulate Hannah Wood. She placed 3rd in the 300-meter dash last week at the indoor track meet, so that's really exciting. The Silpata Jewelry fundraiser for the junior class. For any information or order forms for the jewelry, you can contact anyone in the junior class. February 11th at the high school, there'll be a meeting for parents of future sophomores and freshmen for the Phillips Exeter Summer Enrichment Program. February 19th, there'll be a meeting at the high school for families who would like to host an exchange student, but you must RSVP with Mr. Andriski first, and he'll be sending out an alert now soon with more information if you're interested. That's it.
Excellent. Any questions?
Did we have a group that participated in the Penguin Plunge?
We did.
We did?
Yeah,
How much they
It's a
raised?
pretty small group this year.
Wasn't as
Very
big as,
small, yeah.
yeah, okay. I remember seeing.
I didn't hear a number.
No?
I can tell you, no.
I heard a number from, I think, the whole event. It was 6 figures. It was a huge number, yeah.
Wow.
Couldn't quote it offhand, but it was a surprising, effective fundraiser. It's a great program. And that, I guess that basketball game the boys' game was
So close, it was
Quite
like
a-
1 away, yeah.
lost by 1 point.
Mm-hmm. And the
So now
girls
they know
lost by
what-
2 points.
Now they know what it's like, so
So
let's get
close.
that out of their
Yes.
system.
Right. Any other questions for Emma? Okay. On to you, Dr. Hayes, then, for your superintendent's report and more.
Yep, I have a few things. First of all, the big decision of the day, there is no school tomorrow. So that phone call went out. and
Yes.
I'm sure people were pleased to get that, and so makes a lot of good sense. On your, not in your packet, but on your desk this evening, I placed a document, 3-page, that shows enrollments from SST, and I want to comment on it just a little bit. As you know, Chet and I serve on the governing board. We had a meeting earlier this week, and so they handed this information out. On the first page, it shows Newmarket's enrollment there over the last 3 years. Generally, we're in the 50 to 60 student range, but this year it's down to 47 students. But it also shows there how many students come from the other programs, and you have that information for all of the 3 years. On the second page, it shows a comparison of first-year and second-year students. Not all students continue on in the second year for a variety of reasons. And you've seen in Newmarket, 70% of, 70% of our students, of our total students going there are first-year students, and then 30% of them are students in their second year. And what they said is that's pretty typical. That's kind of what you shoot for. So we're in good stead. You can see at least there's one or two other communities that really aren't at that 70-30 balance point. And so those schools are going to go back and try and figure out why that is in their school. The last one I thought was very interesting, the last page. It shows a distribution of our students and the students from the other communities as to what percent of our kids take what programs. And so you see a wheel there that shows every one of the programs. I was not surprised at some of the big ones being welding and automotive and culinary arts and early childhood, and health sciences for that matter. But I was really surprised that the biggest was in pre-engineering. And if you look at the other schools, you can't say that except for coming out of GBEX. If you notice the GBEX, 20% of the students from GBEX are in pre-engineering. So that was a really interesting piece of data from my vantage point. It's interesting how different schools, it's a
That's
different
weird.
distribution, even though they're all just, kids heading towards careers. So anyway, I thought you'd like to see that.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that.
Thank you.
Let's see what else I had here. Not that. The other evening, Tuesday, I think it was, yeah. Cliff and Meg and I attended the meeting of the Efficiencies Committee, and there were several outcomes from that. I'll give you that first. One is that it was kind of a group decision that the Efficiency Committee has run its course. So as a committee, a joint committee, they felt it's ended, should be ended. But the two steps moving forward are that there really still are needs. One is that the town administrator and I, who really are working closely together, should take a look at this tax impact analysis that Bob Coffey had drawn up, and really dig deep into that. And because I think some people certainly agree with his approach and others don't, and so it's all right. Why don't we, the professionals, take a look at that and analyze it and give a reaction? Is it valid, or are there invalid assumptions, and so forth? So Steve and I and Christine and Matt Angel will be looking at that. The other is for the town administrator and I to sit down and knowing our organizations and knowing the gist of the conversation that was there is what's the next step for still moving this agenda forward. I think there was agreement that it really isn't about efficiency. It's something more than that. It's like long-range planning and revenue generation, perhaps. And so, I don't think, we haven't met yet to talk about it. We don't have any preconceived notions. We need to kind of explore our organizations and say what makes sense that really still is going to be to the benefit of the community. So we'll be doing that. Sounded like they want us to bring back the same people that are on the Efficiency Committee to kind of play it out on them, and then we'd bring it back to our boards. The other thing, which I did a little bit of, I didn't do enough of, that I'd really like to get out there, because I don't, I want people to understand the breadth of what I think is really happening between town and school, because it is a terrific relationship. Town administrator comes up to see me. He came up, I think, twice today. I went down to his office once today, just on little things, but the communication is terrific. But anyway, let me go through my list that I've got here so everybody's aware. We are working on I'll call it a short-term pilot project in consolidating the tech support functions from the town and the school. And so we've had discussions since Dan Seuss left back in December. Doug Poulin is the town's tech support person. He's already done a lot of good work for us. He really has. So informally that took place. But we tried to put together an approach that would formalize this. And we have a structure that we agree to, at least in principle. And now between now and the end of April, we're going to try it out. And so at the end of April, we'll say, okay, do we really think this can work? If so, then we put it in place formally for July 1, and we'll come back to you and let you know what that would mean. But if not, then we just walk away and we go back to the way we've been doing business. But it has to be a step up for both town and school, and that's the important piece here. And I think the biggest piece is just the concern that one person of that level of skill can really address the needs in both sides. And so we're going to play it out for a few months and see how that works. But to me, that's big. The next thing is that we do and are doing some joint purchasing, electricity, fuel oil, business equipment. Again, with Doug Poulin on board, we've talked about when our phone contract finally ends, looking at blending our phone system with the town's, because they have a much better situation. The town is part of our cooperative purchasing program through SES. Facilities management, they're involved with fire and life safety. They're involved designs of the new schools. We've involved them. We actually have a common planning document. You remember that facilities management plan that we had, and gave that to the town, and hopefully they're working with that. The easy one, especially coming up, the town plows, sands schools and sidewalks, school cancellations. I mean, I spoke with Rick Molaski two times today just on that. And the other day, when I needed more information, I called the police dispatch, and they readily give me information. So We have a school resource officer. We have MOUs for police and emergency planning. We have an MOU for use of recreation fields, the lights. There's good communication on scheduling athletics and town rec programs, and there's sharing when we can of supplies and equipment, use of facilities. Miscellaneous stuff, this year we're doing a combined annual report. We're really trying to save some money by doing that. We hope we will. I know we've pared ours back. I'm not sure that I can say the town has, but that's their problem. But we pared ours back, and we're going to put them together into one book. Mosquito control I've got there. I mean, I get questions from parents when it comes that time of the season, and I know exactly what Rick does. So most times I can answer their questions right away, and sometimes I just email Rick and say, all right, I want the report, and he gives me the data, and I share it. So it really facilitates just that easy question. The grounds people have helped us on some things. We've helped with a veterans fundraiser. So we work together in a lot of ways. Does it save us hundreds of thousands of dollars? No, but it is for the better of both and the community. So it's worth noting all of those things, I think. Let's see.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sure.
The consolidated technology support thing.
Yes.
So Dan left in December. Was it Dave or Dan? Dan
Seuss left in December.
So what does that mean for like his salary in terms of the financial is it still in the budget?
Yes, it's still there.
So would we be?
We're not using it. Well, we're using some of it because
you have to pay Doug. No.
We're not paying Doug.
Okay.
Right now it's
just.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we may end up pay Doug.
Okay.
But we haven't got any agreement that says that right now.
All right.
But the remaining tech support person we had, Jameson Savage, he's been putting a lot of extra hours, so I am paying him for his.
Okay.
He's put a lot in, and we've made a lot of headway in terms of getting equipment out and ready with staff, and so I'm really pleased with the progress we've made.
Okay, good. So we're just kind of reallocating the funds for that.
Yes, yeah, and the plan, this reorganized plan has the financial component. We have to figure out how do we make this work financially. So the salary is used to make that all work.
Okay.
So it isn't like it's a savings next year.
I was wondering.
We got that money and say, okay, now what would we do?
Okay.
So, but I think it gives us more bang for the buck, more manpower to deal with issues both on the town side and the school side. So.
Is he like readily available during the day if you need him, if something happens?
Yes, yeah, he's with Jameson. There's been a great communication, good mentoring that's going on and helping him solve problems. When we really needed help, he was pretty much dedicating mornings to the town and afternoons to us, and
great.
So it's he's on board with trying to make it work, and we just have to see if in reality it does.
All right, well, thank you.
And that's all I have for superintendent's report.
Mr. Chair, can I make a comment?
Certainly.
Dr. Hayes, I really appreciate you taking the lead in having direct communication about the efficiencies that you're working with the town administrator, because one of the things that I took away from that last meeting was that there's maybe just inaccuracies in the efforts that have been made in the community. I think we need to be the leaders in getting that information out, because there have been a lot of financial or just collaborative efforts that have been made that are really valuable to this community. Right. So if you and the town administrator can really be aggressive about getting that communication out on a consistent basis, I think that would be great, because I think there's a lot of
Thank you.
Misinformation.
I know, and as you
factual, not emotional.
Yeah, as you saw in the meeting the other night, I mean, I came prepared with this list, but I only got down to number 2.
Right.
And that was about as far as it was going.
Right.
So
thank you for taking the lead on that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Any other questions on those pieces? All right. Off to facilities.
Yes. You have a pretty lengthy facilities report. Let me summarize it here. First of all, the Oyster River tuition agreement. We had a meeting with the representatives from there on January 22nd. Megan, Cliff, and I, joined by the high school assistant principal and principal. And there are 3 key outcomes that came out of that. One is that each district will visit the other's high school during the school day, and Chris Andriski facilitated setting those up. In fact, they toured today, and Emma was part of that. So they came out. We were supposed to be touring Oyster River High School tomorrow, but because of the snow, we pushed it off to Monday, but we're going to go over to that school on Monday. Both principals are supposed to meet to consider what the school program would look like for a 900-student school. The expectation there is that that's a higher population than they even have now, and that may open up more opportunities that aren't even in the program now. So it's a matter of the two, and I think very easily that once the two principals get together, they can make some good judgments as to how things may be improved. And then we're going to continue to consider elements of what would be in part of a tuition agreement. They gave us a copy, excuse me, Barrington School District, who was also in talks with them, had provided an RFP where they had lots of questions about what they would be interested in seeing in a tuition agreement. Well, they gave us a copy of their response. So you really have a sense of what Oyster River would want to see in a tuition agreement. And so now it's in our hands to try and digest that and put in our own interests as well. And so we have a meeting scheduled for Monday night, 6 o'clock at the high school, in the conference room. And hopefully we'll get into some of those issues. But that's the intention anyway for the next meeting. So that's as far as that has gone. Let me see. Also with that, we had Christine and I and Gene Parsons, Director of Special Ed, and Chris Andriski had a meeting earlier this week to run through our budget for the junior senior high and subtract out those things that are purely high school. What we're trying to get to is what would be a budget for our middle school if it remains here while high school kids go to Oyster River. So we're trying to get to a budget number, an operating budget number. So we made I think had a good meeting, but there's still more work to be done over there. The other thing that I've done on this, have a good email conversation going back and forth with the transportation company about what options, how would we do transportation, what would the cost be, and the length of the routes and those kinds of things. So it's still not done, but we're trying to nail that down pretty soon. I think we will. It's shaping up like a couple options, and so once I have that firmed up, I'll bring that to you.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, go ahead.
I've heard several people have asked why we haven't submitted our own RFP to Oyster River, and I was just curious if there were reasons that we have for that, or like what that. Look, I think that process is a little ambiguous for some people, and they don't necessarily understand why it happens or when the right time for it to happen. So I didn't know if you could speak to some of that, or if not, I don't know.
I felt like we don't have a date certain in mind that we want this to happen, whereas Barrington
Already has.
they don't have a high school back in Barrington to go to if this falls through. So Barrington's tuition agreement is an annual agreement. But now what they're looking for is a longer agreement with them, and so for them it's really negotiating for next year and future years, and same for Deerfield. Deerfield is a year away from losing theirs.
Okay.
But for us, I really didn't go down that route because one of the big questions remains. Are they willing to accept the high enrollment that arises from combining all of us with all of them? Mm-hmm. And when you look at the enrollment projections, it's really hard to determine when they would say, okay, we can accept you in this year. And so I felt ours was more conversations about things and not really I need a price for next year.
Okay.
You know what I mean? That which is what I thought an RFP was about.
All right.
But we're going to benefit from their RFP. Their
Yeah,
answers are
yeah.
certainly germane to us.
Great.
Okay.
Certainly, we can aggregate those numbers, the Barrington numbers, in some way, and our transportation costs and the cost to provide a middle school here, and how special ed figures in. And I'm sure I'm not
Getting-
identifying at least
No,
6
but
other
you're right.
things that are going to
Yeah.
build into that spreadsheet so we can understand what would it cost
Right.
and, in year one and also over a multi-year agreement.
Right.
Well, there are a lot more moving
Right.
parts to a tuition agreement than I think people
are.
think. It's
Right.
not just the amount of money per child that it takes.
No.
And I think that's what we need to,
And that's what we're doing.
our job is to try and get answers to all of those pieces
Right.
so that the town can make an educated decision, not just say, well, it's going to cost us this much per child and let's just jump whole hog into it.
The special ed one is particularly complicated.
Yeah.
And I know Gene Parsons, I should say, has already done a good deal of work to try and sort out what might it cost us. What would it cost this year or next year if we all of a sudden were at Oyster River? So
So
we
does
have-
she know what their special ed department is in terms of what they could offer our kids?
Yes, and
If-
she's also had conversations with the Barrington special ed director to get a sense of that as well, and
Okay.
how they deal with issues and then the costs that get passed back.
Okay,
So
okay.
she's done
Well,
that,
that's good. So we kind of have like a,
yeah.
what do I want to say, an example case that we can
Right.
go to.
Right, and that's what we're trying to do. I said I want it as realistic as possible, so let's take it on a kid-by-kid basis and what the services are and what might that translate to. So there's a
Great.
lot to it, but it'll give us an accurate picture.
Well, thank you, because I know there's a lot of work that's going into that.
Yeah.
A lot of other people involved, so.
The other piece that goes with this, serving on SST and really liking SST, is trying to get an answer, and I haven't got it yet, but I'm told they'll get back to me by tomorrow, an answer from the state. Oyster River students, their primary source for career and technical education is Dover High School.
Oh.
And so I've raised the question, will you compel us to go there? And in some respects, whether they do or not, I think we may find, if not in the beginning, over time, that's where students will want to go. They'll probably want to go to the same place where their classmates are. Dover is just down the road, really, from Oyster River, Dover High School. And whereas Exeter's an even further now ride if you're at Oyster River. So I'm trying to get clarity on that. We talked about it at the governing board meeting the other day, and the impact of taking our 50 to 60 students from SST would be very big.
I imagine.
Yeah. And yet I had a conversation today with the Dover superintendent, and she said, yes, we'd be able to absorb those kids into our program. So tonight I sent her an email saying, all right, specifically, here's how many kids, in what programs, could you absorb us today if I sent the bus over there?
Do they have comparable programs? Is it
That's what I'm
like-
going to find out,
Oh,
and I
okay.
don't know. I don't know. So that's
Another piece.
a side piece that's really, for our kids, they're going to obviously have opportunities to do career and technical education, but I'm concerned that the impact on SST, frankly.
Yeah.
So we'll see where that goes. There's a lot to this.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm going to skip over the fire and life safety piece because Dan will get to that in a few moments. Heating at the junior, senior high school. I knew I stirred a pot. And that's okay, because sometimes you need to. But it wasn't really to stir a pot. Even as recent as 2 or 3 weeks ago, there are still people out there who I think believe that with our junior, senior high school, all you have to do is fix the fire and life safety, and let's call it a day. And there's so much more that's wrong with that building. So, what was it, 2.5 or so weeks ago, when we had that really cold snap, the head custodian at the school emailed me and said, Jim, I'm having problems. I can't get the heat much up above 60. And so I went down to the school and said, show me what they are. And then I reported back to all of you. And so I put it out there on Facebook, and, excuse me, but it's also here in your report tonight. And I did it really to try and convey a couple messages. One, it's not just fire and life safety. And now that people think maybe it's fire and life safety and heat, no, it's not just fire and life safety and heat. okay? It's electricity, it's lighting, it's acoustics,
Space.
it's ventilation, it's space, and so there are a lot of reasons why there's a need for a new junior, senior high school. And so I tried to convey that. The other thing that I tried to convey, which was really just striking to me, that years, and I mean decades ago, we would have built rooms with zero heat. I mean, no heat source in them. I would have thought last year, because we realized that last year when we had the science classrooms, right? And we put heat in the science classrooms. I'm thinking, okay, that was an oversight somehow, and so we put heat in those rooms, only to find out now that it wasn't just those rooms, that it was the CAD room, the room that's adjacent to the woodworking shop, and in the band room, you know how big that is with stage and everything, and it had a 6-foot section of radiator, which is no way can, and so that was kind of just shocking to me. And what was shocking to me too is that people in that building have just accepted that for years, many years. This isn't a Jim Hayes problem. This isn't a lack of maintenance over the last 5 years. This is how it was built, and people just came to accept it. And so that's a sad situation when we reach that. So anyway, I wanted to explain my motivation for doing that. That's all that it really was. And I'm not going to go through all of the examples that are here. But as you see in my last paragraph in my report, we need to fix, to the best we can, the heating problems that we have there. Now, we've got partial quotes. We don't have enough quotes yet. And then we'll go out to bid once we have a sense of it. But our sense of it is that this may take $25,000. And so what I would ask you to do tonight is to, as agents of the Repair and Maintenance Trust Fund, is authorize us to use up to $25,000 of that fund to address these heating issues, most specifically in the band room and the classroom that's adjacent to the wood shop. So that would take a formal vote from you to do that if you would.
Is that also this, the English, the World Carol Smart's classroom? Is that the?
I'm not. I don't know what more can be done in there. We can find out. But right now it's really. I mean, for example, the quote. Let me see. The quote that we got was for the CAD, the CAD classroom. Just that classroom with no heat was $12,000 plus. So, and maybe a little bit different solution in the band room, I'm not sure, but we felt like 25,000, and, if it goes over that, then we'll squeeze some money out of our operating budget, but I have not had a conversation with Bob as to what the HVAC people feel about the classrooms where the radiators have no fins.
I mean, so I guess my question, my biggest question is, okay, now we've identified these classrooms. So has that prompted someone to go through every other classroom in that building to make sure
Yeah, and yes.
that we know which ones have heat and which ones don't, so we don't end up in this situation next year? I mean, we need to make sure that we have heat.
I don't think that's the final solution. Because, for example, when I toured with Bob that day, we went to a classroom. The classrooms we were visiting were on the end and the front, the street side of the building, and when we went into a classroom on the back side, it had all the warmth you could want.
Right.
And when I talked to the teacher, she said, yeah, it's great today, but there are days when, for whatever reason, it's not. So,
Okay.
but I will talk more and see what more we can do. I certainly want to have a comfortable
Yeah.
learning and working environment.
Okay.
So it sounds like you're not looking for fixing the problem. Sounds like we're going towards better, but good is probably still out of reach.
Well, Dan can probably speak to it better than I, but to me, to do it right, it means rip out the whole system and put it back in. You have to recognize that the walls have no insulation. And with 90-year-old walls, there are cracks and whatnot that develop along the way, and so the heat loss is easy and in a lot of different ways. And Bob went through and tried to fill where he could, but I would think that if you really want to make it consistently comfortable, you'd have to do a major renovation. Is that pretty accurate, Dan, would you say? Yeah.
And the reason for not putting plastic on the windows is a fire hazard.
Fire code, that's my understanding, yeah.
So even though it was done years ago, those codes have changed over the years, I imagine.
Or maybe...
Or maybe it shouldn't have
Or
been
maybe
done
we're
years
ignored.
ago.
I don't know. I don't know, but I know.
Yeah, you probably speak to those.
Don't know. I know.
Well, that's what people are saying. Oh, years ago it
Yeah,
had,
well,
so
they may have, and
why
maybe
don't
it
they
wasn't
just
part of
throw
the
some
code,
plastic
but-
up there?
Code's changed a lot over the last 10 years, I would say. Correct, Dan? I would say that. It's changed dramatically.
Okay.
With, some very serious fires that, and the science, I think, of life safety, so.
Makes sense to me.
So, is that a motion?
Makes sense to me. I don't know, does that equate to a motion? Let's see, where is it? So, I'd make a motion to approve up to $25,000 to be taken from the Repair and Maintenance Trust Fund to repair heat issues at the junior, senior high school. Does that work?
Mm-hmm.
I'll second that.
Discussion?
No?
Want to start with, there's about 108,000 currently in that fund.
This is a very appropriate, I think,
Yeah.
use of that money.
I mean, I just want to kind of underscore your comments about, it's our staff and students have come accustomed to, or just kind of arrived with, well, this is the way it is. And there's lots of studies that indicate that students do much better, employees do much better, and are more efficient in an environment they're not worried about keeping their hands and feet warm. So I think it's very important to do, and I guess I'm thankful for the staff that identified the problem when we had the opportunity of that really cold weather that really helped identify places in the building that kind of they self-identify that these are the spots that are rough. I'm wondering if we do add more finned radiator piping, what have you, how much more of a load that's going to be on the system? If more heat is if the water is that much colder when it loops back around to the heating plant, how much it can handle it. But that's.
I don't know.
That's.
I will follow up.
And I know that when I toured that heating plant, one point in time, it was described that it was very much an art of, okay, well, the building is this wide. That means it needs a plant this big. It's kind of a very, when the technology of the day was that, for sizing those sort of things, it was very, very rough science. So hopefully there's enough room in that to make that better. But I guess even if it doesn't have enough, if we can more evenly distribute the heat within the building, we'll be in better shape. So any other thoughts or comments on the motion? All right, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries 4-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other facilities
No, that's
items
all.
at this point before we
Wait a minute, let me
go to the
check.
piece
Pretty
that's
sure
in
all.
program?
Yes, that is all.
Okay. All right, to the program piece then. Evan Jones, our 5th grade teacher, is here to discuss a field trip opportunity.
Yes, that's right. Good evening. My name is Evan Jones, for those of you who don't know. I'm here on behalf of the 5th grade team to request your permission to go to Portland, Maine on May 23rd. This is an annual trip we do with the fifth graders to a baseball game. It's a nice little kind of graduation since they are moving on to the junior, senior high school. It's an annual trip we do, and just something that I think is really special that we've done for years. I've been here for 6 years. We've gone every year, and before I came, they've been going. So it's just a great end of the year trip. We get a nice generous donation from the PTA to offset some of the ticket costs for the kids, so the cost of the trip is quite low for a trip to Portland and back, and the cost of the game. Other than that, it's just a great opportunity to bond with their classmates one last time, to end their career at the elementary school. And I'm just here to ask for your permission.
Okay.
All right. Being an out-of-state field trip, our policy dictates that
Yep.
we do this. Anyone?
So I make a motion to accept or approve the grade 5 trip to Portland, Maine.
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
I have a wonderful time.
Thank you.
I recall the opportunity around 10 years ago
Yep.
to chaperone on that trip. And,
Yeah, and that's another great piece is a lot of parents it's an opportunity for a lot of parents to come on that trip with their kids. We get about 16 parents because it's good for crowd control at a
Yes,
baseball game. But we
yes.
get about 16 parents that come, so it's a great opportunity for parents to come as well. And we're really looking forward to it. And it's Education Day, so there's going to be a lot of educational opportunities for the kids to see in all the different venues of the game. They're going to have different sites set up throughout the game, and then little workbooks. That's what I've heard that they're going to give to each kid to kind of keep them focused on the game. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
Not the concession stands, but we're looking forward to it. So thank you very much.
Yes,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Great.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Okay.
Evan.
all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Right. Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion carries, of course. Okay. Welcome, Dan. You're make you an honorary member of
I know.
of our merry band here. It seems.
We're going to do it with PowerPoint, so
Okay.
it means we go out in the audience.
Nice cushy seat for now. I do.
Yeah, well, yeah.
I'm never moving from this seat.
It was really warm when we first got here. Now it's freezing.
It warms up a little bit.
The area besides the workshop classroom.
Say that again.
Where was the other area besides the shop itself? Yeah.
Oh, is that what you do?
At this point, we're starting off with taking the first step to take care of a fairly large area of significance is the science lab, classroom egress. Out of the project compliance plan, that seems to be the most concerning, is trying to get any of the students in that area to have a code compliance method of getting out of the building in that general region. This is the existing second floor plan, and you can see the two major science areas here, which are now using these two elements, and they're non-compliant for reasons that I'll explain to you right now. Is basically this stair goes down into a corridor, and once you're in a stair environment, it's supposed to be protected all the way to the outside, to a public way. Well, once you're dumped into the space below a corridor, the corridor is a lesser degree of safety, and that corridor should have the same rating all the way outside. So that's why that doesn't comply. This one, when you start going downstairs, there are issues with the walls. There's walls like over here. The walls don't go all the way to underside of deck, so there's places where a fire could breach. What we've done is taken care of the right-hand side by just simply eliminating the stair and getting a pathway to this corridor. So basically, we're connecting a corridor to a corridor, so it's the same level of fire safety. This corridor would have to be fire rated. What it does allow is this classroom to exit out this way and this one. To go back, you can see where the second classroom here, to get out of here, there's no real way of getting through here. You either have to come around, go through here, go back through the classrooms and get down. So this second means of egress is really not existent. The other one is going through storage spaces through here, through here, through here, which is not also code compliant because you're going through a hazardous space. So that's the whole reason for having this the way it is. So we have exit, exit to a corridor, and the corridor has been smoke approved, and that was done last year. So that path has been taken care of. This one here, we had tried several approaches. We had talked about a fire escape, trying to go through this window and trying to bridge across with a fire escape. And we wouldn't use the word fire escape because fire escapes denotes open grates, threads, and rises open. It would be a passage on a path of solid material. And then once we got out of here, the intention was to go down with a set of stairs. The issue is this floor level and this roof level, you have to step up 3 feet. So now I need a stair area to go up 3 feet to go down. So that was not very well would work. Then we thought about coming across here and maybe coming through this area. Well, there's a lot of rooftop units, so we just kept on coming with obstacles. So we abandoned that. The second approach we had was to cut through this whole part of the library to special ed and create a stair. We showed that to the administrators, and it's like the special ed room was being cut in half. People didn't like that one. So we finally started to take a look and revisit the stairway, and a lot of the items were non-conformance. So we started to pop ceiling tiles, we started to look into walls. We found the places where things were not appropriate, and we found ways of making it compliant. One of them was just simply trying to understand if these walls could be made rated, and the key to it is the sheetrock has to be fire code sheetrock. We couldn't see any labels. We popped some ceiling down, tiles down, we went up and looked down into the cavities, and lo and behold, I found a sticker, and it says fire rated. So it says, okay, thumbs up. So we kept on going, and we made it work. Here's the downstairs. To follow through, this is the non-code compliance. As I say, once you're down here, you really need the same kind of rating all the way to the outside. And again, you're in the corridor. You went from a stairway to a corridor, go around here and come back out. So we're going to abandon that and create a corridor directly to the corridor on the second floor. This one here, we had issues with these walls. This area here was always breached because there's so many penetrations, so that became a problem. So what we did, got rid of that stair, created the upstairs egress to the corridor. Here, we isolated it. I'll back up one quick one. You can see here, this door is the place we had a breach. When we did this, we actually placed a new door here. We found that there's a structural concrete beam here, so by moving the door here, we had a way of enclosing the stairwell. It also provided us with this computer room accessing without having to go in the stairwell. This door would be removed. So we created this pathway. Here we'll go above the ceiling. This is CMU concrete block. We'll extend that block up the extra couple of feet. Why they never did it, we don't understand. It should have been done when they did this. That's common practice when you do a stair enclosure. It's supposed to go to underside of the structure. So here's the upstairs reconfiguration in a little more detail. What we're doing here is, as I said, we block this path here, which doesn't conform. The other thing it doesn't conform is the width's supposed to be 6 feet minimum. It doesn't meet it. This is a ramp that is too steep. If you remember, from here to here, there's 2 steps if you go into the little room on the side. So you can't get egress through there, and plus it's not handicap accessible because that ramp is too steep. So by blocking this off, we created this science and this science to come down this stair, which we're able to make fireproofed. When we did that, there was a bonus space. This is going to become our chem storage area and chem processing area. It's a bonus space. We also don't need this corridor, so we're going to take all of these walls down. Right now, there's a janitor's closet in here. We'll make the entire space a janitor's closet. This opening, we're going to keep it wide open. It's going to be an unbalanced door. The reason is they got floor machines. So we're going to do a 3-foot door, and what they call here is a small door inactive. Most of the time, they'll go through here, but if they need to get floor machines in and out, they can open this up, and this will be one large space. So that will give the custodians a lot more space. So we picked up some space, believe it or not. So that's a bonus. So going downstairs, as I mentioned before, we took this door out and provided the door here, and we were able to make this a fairly well-sealed area. We're going to fill the voids above this and make that work. So this all works on the other side. The other side, one of the issues too, we tried a couple of attempts to try to get a handicap lift down one side over here where the existing one is between the 2 floors by the gym. We had tried to create a path this way. Same thing, the ups and downs, we just couldn't cut into the structure. So we basically come from the back science through here. Now, one of the key issues is the travel distance to a dead-end corridor can't exceed 50 feet. So we played it sneaky. We took this door, moved it down here, and lo and behold, that's 50 feet. It works, so we made it work. And then this is another area where you come in from this science. So this is all a corridor rated the same rating as this corridor, so it's all a path. The other part is, as I said, there's a couple of steps here. We looked downstairs, we took some ceilings down, and we're going to take the floor structure, which actually spans in this direction, remove those. That's a corridor below that goes in the calf, and we're going to slope this. So now these 2 science classrooms are now handicap accessible. So we picked that one up too. But it took a lot of this taking things apart, and we found it. Today we had the engineers over, and they're all confirming all this works, because I had the structural engineer there, mechanical, electrical. Just to let you know, back to what Jim was saying about the building built and people living with what they have, these science areas have no hot water. The only hot water they have is this sink. So these 2 teachers have to walk through here to get that. We're going to correct some of those things when we start looking at some of these renovations. It's very strange. The classroom down on the other side of the stair where Linda is, we're moving her classroom because this room doesn't conform for a lab anymore because it's 900, so we're going to make that a regular classroom. Same thing in that area. There's one sink in a corner that was put in, but the demo lab has no hot water. The teacher told us that. We were surprised. And the demo lab has an outlet, but it's not been wired. It never was wired. So we're finding little things, and we're going to correct them as we go.
So that's no longer going to be the biology?
Correct. The biology is going to go over. I don't know what room that is. It's the other science teachers.
You may remember last time.
I'll show you that in a second.
You see how that new hallway cuts right through those tables?
Yeah, those tables.
And so it makes that an even smaller science room. And so when we had a meeting, and all the people involved at the school, and it was Chris Hendrisky's idea to swap and take, Mr. Thayer is retiring.
Right.
And he has a bigger space. And so the game plan is going to be to convert, and he's got a drawing he'll show you, but to convert that into a real
lab.
A real high school science lab, and then the current life science lab will become a regular classroom. I'm not sure whether, because he teaches 7th grade science, so I'm not sure where 7th grade science will go, but it's not into this room, it's into another room.
And that's a DOE requirement. The requirement for DOE labs have to be larger than 900 square feet as a formula, so we're better able to accept the other space. It also worked well with his program because the junior high section of the building is beyond a pair of double doors. And right now, they come into the high school area. This kind of separates it, so Chris is very happy with that exercise. So here's that room we're talking about. Presently, it has these 2 lab tables. So what we're going to do is get enough stations for 24 students, 6 stations of 4 students. So we're going to create a solid table here with a sink and a solid table here with a sink and a sink. So 4, 8, 12, 16, and we have a total of 24. These are going to be movable desks. They can take those and put them in the center in rows, so it can become a a basic classroom, and when they have lab work, they'll put these against these little peninsulas, so they'll all have sinks. Right now, this particular room and the other one only has a few sinks. So now they'll actually have true lab areas in groups of 4.
So is this the current Linda Hall, right?
This is Mr.
Yeah, this is the stair right over here.
All right, so that's right when you come up the
Right.
stairs, his
Yeah.
classroom is right there. Okay.
So we're able to make this work. What we'll do too is, right now, this is a blank wall. We'll put some wall cabinets here. We'll put some storage cabinets here and some wall cabinets. Put some bookshelves here, and this will be the teachers' area where they'll be working the overhead projector and the smart board. And we reviewed that with Linda today in detail and Chris, and they're very happy with this. That's it. Any questions? Okay.
Maybe missing it, but do we need a handicap accessible seat?
Yes, what we'll do, let's see, I'm going, is oops, one more time. Press the right button, Dan. Handicap, this here will actually be a lower counter, so that will accept handicap. It's actually only 2 inches, and we've been talking about it. Instead of being 36, it's 34. 2 inches is not the big deal. We're going to make all of these 34. So handicap person with some disabilities can use any of these 4 stations. We've done that in a couple of schools, and it's been acceptable. People don't really realize the 2 inches once they're in there. So that's I think what we're going to do. And then we'll make sure that, these tables also match the height. These are all stools, so the tables will be 34 instead of 32. I mean 36, so.
And they'll be sitting on stools.
Sitting on stools. So they'll be dual use. These tables can move, so they'll have the stools in the center for a general classroom. And because these 2 exist, basically we have 4 extra tables, so Linda's really happy. This is going to have her a place to set up the students' work programs or the experiments. She can set them up ahead before they come in, so she's really happy about that. These bases are in pretty good shape. It's oak, so we're going to keep them, and we're going to finish them, restain them. We'll redo the countertops and the sinks. So we're trying to salvage as much as we can. And this is the counter here. It exists a little bit further. This is the one that has an electrical outlet, never wired. This sink doesn't have any hot water. The only one that does is, there was a makeshift sink over here that was put in. That is really, was made by probably some volunteers that has hot water. So we're going to make sure we have hot water here. We also are putting a large utility sink so they can clean larger items. Right now, they don't have any big sink, so she was happy with that.
Could you go back to the very first one?
Sure.
Where you started to fill in the thread? No, keep going. There you go. That one. What's that yellow space right there?
That's a storage room right now. That's the chem storage with the fume hood. There's a fume hood right here.
Okay, all right.
So we're going to remove the fume hood, and we've already talked to Jim about putting the fume hood here as a 2-way. We've been talking, we made that discussion today with Jim and our engineers. We came up with a concept with a fume hood that's a pass-through. So we're going to create this as the actual chem storage with demo. So we've worked that out today. So we did quite a bit today.
So will that right side wall of that yellow space come down? And that will-
Nope, that will stay as glassware.
Oh, okay.
In fact, another thing we talked about, because that has a sink in here right about there, that has a little remote heater, because that's how they got heat for that sink. We're going to try to pipe it in, and we're also trying to consider a glass washing. It's like a little mini dishwasher, because they got a ton of glassware, and it helps sanitize it. So we're going to discuss it with Chris and Jim to see if, let's put that in. It'd be the right thing to do. They can clean their glassware, and there's less breakage with that, and it sanitizes them as well. So by doing that, we already went downstairs and looked today, popped some more ceilings. We found pats down below where there's some sinks and some water, so we can tie in. Believe it or not, one of them is like 5 feet away. It just never got tied in. So we're picking away at it, but we're making it a lot better.
Yes.
We're doing life safety, but I also believe we're making the science areas much better.
Yeah.
So we're pretty happy with that.
And so, I was just going to say that now that Dan's explained it even more, and now you get to see what we have to do in order to make a life science lab, that
those are the things that drive it to the estimated cost I gave you, $325,000 to $400,000. And to be clear, that comes out of the funds that were approved a year ago, last March.
Right. Because we're replacing an entire unit. There's a mechanical unit buried over here right now.
We have to put that on the roof, right?
Yeah, right here. And that, when we did the analysis, that unit is in pretty bad shape, and it services the library. So we're going to remove it, replace it, and use that as the access way, but we're going to take a new unit and put it over this area and tie into the ductwork. But we're going to have...
But it's going to be on the roof?
It's going to be on a roof.
So that's probably where a lot of the cost is coming.
It's going to be, yeah, that's some of the costs. Substantial. And the report we did show that unit, it's time to be replaced. So now that we're displacing it, now's the time to do it.
So that's a heating unit?
I think it's a ventilation / partially AC. This is a email that I got today that I sent to Jim. They looked at it with Bob French, and they're trying to find a way of adding a section when they put it up there to actually supplement the heat so we don't have to steal as much heat from some other places. This is where the engineering comes in. They're trying to take advantage of the redesign to make it better by not just simply replacing it in kind. If there's a way they can make it work better, they're going to do it. So one unit that they found today, they think they can add a small unit that will actually have heating coils. So instead of just doing ventilation and air conditioning, it'll also have heating capability.
Potentially an economizer or something drawing in some outside.
Yes, exactly. So they're bringing everything up to a modern standard, but also trying to make sure that we're just not plugging in a replacement. We're thinking about it.
So the plan isn't, having been through the building and, you know, just a sense of some things that kind of scared me, that we'd be relocating a vintage mechanical closet to the roof.
Yeah, we're not doing a vintage, we're doing a modern. And then if we can enhance it, we're going to take advantage of that. Yeah. We're not just going to take and say, oh, that was an ABC, we're going to get a new ABC. No, we're going to make sure it's conforming to today's standards, energy efficient. So that's the key to it.
So sell it on Antiques Roadshow.
Yes. Jim's kind of said, you know, this building has some ills, but you're not the only one. A lot of the buildings over time, where people were frugal, you know, they did what they did. And this is the result of today's time. We're starting to see these buildings, they get revisited, and they say, this is what they did. And you really can't fault people what they were doing back then, because that was kind of the norm. And people were expecting to live within these confines, and it's just the way it is. When you had a buried room, for instance, like here, you only had one outside wall, and it says, well, a lot of heat's going to come from other places. Today we don't do that, but back then they used that kind of approach. And right, wrong, or indifferent, that's what they did. But now that we look at these facilities in today's standards, we just don't accept that standard anymore. Don't beat yourself up too much either. But you definitely got to bring this up. It's like buying a house and you got an old kitchen that's 30 years old. You renovate them. That's kind of what we're doing. We're renovating the old kitchen.
So, in the process of that renovating to the, you know, the new location for the biology lab, here we are been talking about making the space warmer. I know that that room in the summertime, due to its southern exposure, perhaps proximity to heat exchangers outside, it gets very warm. That should be something that you're thinking about, not necessarily active cooling, but if there's a place that...
There's a ventilation system in there, and that's a good point. I'll bring that up to see if they can step that up, if there's a way they can adjust the controls on that to get more ventilation out of the existing system. It's those tubes that come down in corners called displacement air. It's a good system. Maybe they can do something with the system to get more air changes, which would make the place a little more comfortable. Those are the kind of things. I'm glad you mentioned that. I'll bring that up, saying you can look at looking at the existing ventilation. Is there anything you can do to help with air circulation?
So with these plans the way they are now, is it still doable within the summer?
Yes, that's the intent. The intent is to get everything bid ready, by your warrant period of time, mid-March. And at that point in time, if everybody still is a go, we will implement that out to bid. And then the bid would be awarded. They would start ordering their supplies or shop drawings to get approval. So in June, all that legwork is already ready to go, so there won't be any excuse, well, I can't get that piece of equipment because I didn't order it yet. We're trying to circumvent that excuse. So it'll be mid-June to late August, there'll be that time frame to implement all this. So we'll be ready.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Prepared for that. Up here, wake up. Right. Sit down on one. You can't breathe. It's kids. Can't live with them, can't live without them. You like to share. I'm gonna look like.
Good evening.
Thank you, Dan.
Stay warm tomorrow. It's gonna be a
Night.
Oh, yeah.
tough one tomorrow.
Thanks. All right, great. That was great to see the next level of detail in that and a little bit of a redesign and
Came up with a new scheme. And,
Yeah.
And the science thing, that's the first time I'd seen that drawing of the new science lab today, because we talked about it conceptually, peninsulas and stuff, but it looks great.
Mhm.
It's good.
And I love the willingness to look in the walls and see what other coppers nearby to tie in the plumbing, and only looking forward.
Linda went from having tables cut in half to a tiny classroom to now have it, I mean, I love how everyone's thinking, working together.
We'll make it better, right? Yeah, Linda and it was, the two of us and Chris Andriski and the biology teacher and the department head, and we all just threw out ideas how to make it work, and
Great.
Dan drew it up.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's then move on to review of the warrant, I guess.
You basically have two warrant articles that were amended at the deliberative session, and you have the opportunity to make a different recommendation or affirm the previous recommendation, but you should probably take action on those. Article 1, the $70,000 was added back in, so we have the new figure of $15,623,567. Currently, it reads, it's not recommended by all of you, so I think you may want to change that vote. So.
Did the budget committee meet on it yet?
Budget committee did meet Tuesday evening.
Is that the current?
No, that is
No.
not. That's old news. Their vote that evening was 7-0 in favor of this article with 2 abstentions. So they're recommending it as well.
Okay. So, I would love it if we could update our recommendation based on, because our old recommendation clearly wasn't with these numbers in mind, and as we felt that that's $70,000 would be very damaging to program. So, anyone want to make a motion regarding the recommendation of this warrant article?
Okay. I'll make a motion to, how do I want to say it? To recommend Article 1 as presented, because that's the number that we
As
want.
it's presented now,
Yeah.
right.
I'll second that.
Further discussion?
Nope.
All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay.
Motion carries unanimously.
Yeah. And then Article 12.
Which was a minor change. I
Mhm.
think the tenor of the room was Was it December, February
It was a February 2014 date.
was
Yeah.
just a little bit too late and not in alignment with the meeting schedule.
Yeah, I recalled why I put that date in. It may seem kind of strange, but anyway, I went back to 2010 and said, how did they word the warrant article for merger 2 years ago? And it said February of,
Yeah.
so
you
that's,
carried it
so I just carried it all forward. But as I said at the meeting, I have no problem with the December through 13.
I'll make a motion to accept Article 12 as presented.
I'll second it.
Further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Once again unanimously supported.
As it happens, I took a good guess and have recorded those votes already. And
A regular seer of the future.
so yes, I am a seer. Yes, yeah. So I need you to sign, please, if you would.
Okay.
On the last page. Yeah, I'll put the last page first for you. And then you can look at the others just to double check what you're signing, if you like.
Okay.
I think it's important to recognize and thank the people that turned out
Mm.
for both sessions, but obviously in particular for the school, because without their attendance, we may have been in the very difficult position of having to talk about where that $70,000 would come from. So
Mhm.
thank you for
Great
everybody that
support.
came out and
Yes.
supported
Indeed.
us, supported us children.
Couldn't agree more. Okay. So while we pass this along, we can move on to the winter sports participation data.
Yep.
Jim, do you have anything or trends you see, or patterns, or
No,
curiosities?
Not in particular. I mean, we've got some drop in overall enrollment, so we see some drop. But you look at the basketball numbers. The boys is a higher participation. Girls is almost the same. The Spirit Squad, same basically. So it's not a whole lot of change. But again, you can't look at the totals under sports because we still don't have the spring season there as to what level of participation. But even though you see a slight drop in total population, you're still seeing good numbers turning out for the teams.
Any question for regarding these things? Right. On to correspondence then.
Had two things under correspondence. One I put on your desk tonight, the elementary school newsletter. So that's there for your reading. The other thing, on Monday, I think it was, Christine and I went to a legislative priorities workshop where the governor spoke, but the primary speakers were the chair of the House Education Committee and the chair of the Senate Education Committee, and they spent a good deal of time going through what legislation is out there that is in process, mostly in hearing, but some not yet. And so we learned a lot, and yet we're at that stage where there's still a lot out there that probably won't see the light of day. So I'm really not ready to bring in our representatives and start talking about the ones. I want to see the ones that really are still standing up, probably in April sometime, and bring them in. But I did, under correspondence, put a letter that was given to us. It's a letter to the editor written by Marjorie Porter. She's in her second term in the House, and she represents towns of Antrim, Hillsborough, and Windsor, and is chair of the Municipal and County Government Committee. So she wrote a letter to the editor, to their local paper, the Monadnock Ledger Transcript, and I was just struck by it. And the title of where it was written says "Downshifting and Available Revenues," and it's really all about what is happening at the state level to downshift the state's commitment to things and push it back into the local, or not at all. And it's really pointing up the revenue problem here, and it's really, obviously it's not all about education, but some of these things are striking for me. I've always been, the one that struck me the most was the roads, because I've always been, especially having driven to work too many years in Massachusetts, very proud of New Hampshire's roads and how they keep them up. And yet, you can see the trend over the last 10 years is changing in a very negative way. But there are a whole host of issues that are there with the state, some lawsuits from the federal government. It's just, was an interesting read for me, and I thought you might enjoy seeing it. So.
It was very thought-provoking.
Yeah.
It's something I'm going to keep handy for a while.
Yeah.
New Hampshire ranks last in the nation in support for public higher education. That is just so sad.
And then the one I did not know, it says New Hampshire is the richest state in the union with a median income of $66,303.
Shows where their priorities are, I guess.
It's we can all pick our favorites. There are two bullets next to each other. There's approximately 27 millionaires in the state, and also
27,000.
27,000 millionaires in the state, and approximately 27,000 children living in poverty. I think this is a remarkable and
paradox.
Yeah.
Thank you for providing that.
You are.
Okay. Any other thoughts or questions about those items of correspondence, the elementary school newsletter or otherwise? Haven't had a chance to.
It keeps getting bigger, like that keeps, the font keeps shrinking and they keep trying.
Well, what's this?
The newsletter. It's
Oh,
like there's
yes.
so
Yep.
much stuff for them to put in.
Down to, it looks like 8-point font.
Yeah.
Or either that or my eyes are slipping.
Maybe.
Maybe.
We'll say it's the 8-point.
Yeah. Thanks. Okay. Next, we have some business department items. We've got some communication from our auditing firm regarding that recent audit. Christine, would you like to speak to that at all?
Sure.
Or?
I'll just give you a recap of, in case you didn't read the literature that I provided, but I provided the board with the independent audit report. And basically what I want to just summarize, more importantly, is on the first page in the third paragraph, the main thing that I pull away from that is that our financial statements were referred to as being presented fairly in all major respects, and that's key. That means that we had a clean audit. So that's definitely a pat on your previous staff for having a very well-provided audit to the auditors, and their response meets all the legal obligations. The second page that I provided is it's just the financial statement, and you can see, I'll just draw your attention to the bottom, that the fund balance, that 349,000, that's what we reported. So you can see that we are, consistent with what our numbers are and what the auditors are reporting. So we match. But I do want to make note to those who are watching is that 349,000 is not any reflection of how your previous department ran the operating budget. Those funds are strictly from, if you recall, two warrant articles you had, warrant article number 1 and number 3. And excuse me, but I forget the purposes. I think they were sprinkler system. And what was the other one?
The fire alarm system.
Yeah, fire alarm system, okay. It was that, and then you also received some unanticipated revenues. So that's where the 349 makes up. So it wasn't an underuse of your operating budget. So I just want to make sure that that's clear. And then the third page is what we call controlled deficiencies. That is pretty much coming from the single audit. And what I've done so far is that the report states we have two controlled decentralized activities that they would like us to look at, and that is the student activities account and the food service. And pretty much, I'll tell you, I'm working with Linda Hopi, the food service director, and we're making some changes in terms of how we're running reports with Infinite Campus. And we are working with the auditors to correct that finding. And the same thing, I'll be working with the bookkeepers at the schools to just tidy up on the activities accounts. Now, I do want to make note, we're not doing anything wrong, okay? What they're asking for is just more oversight from the business department, so that they just kind of want us to do more checks and balances in terms of not only we're receiving monthly reports, but somebody needs to be reviewing them and kind of just doing a checks and balances periodically here and there, watching the accounts. The food service issue is more of, our system is more of a cash deposit based system, and they want to see it more of a point of sale service in terms of what the sales for the day versus actual cash received. So we're just working on just trying to rework the reports. So that's pretty much all it is. It's nothing to be overly concerned about, so I just want to put you at ease for that. So overall, we have a very clean audit, so good job to my predecessor and the fellow workers. On to the best news that I'm excited about. I gave you all this afternoon, or I should say this before the meeting began, the budget report. This is from Encode. This is from our new software system. Okay, it's Tyler Technologies Encode. As you know, for those who are watching, we are a beta site for the software. So as we're going through all of this processes, we're the first to go through it. So of course, we're uncovering some things that we want to make changes to. I will tell you, don't be overly concerned with the numbers right now, because when we pulled over our trial balances, some of the things didn't hit the accounts right. So some are over, some are short. You'll see one of them in here under 1,100, I think it is. It says that we're short $180,000 in health insurance. It's just because when we pulled over, we had to get payroll done. We had to hit an account to get the payroll process. So we just charged it all to 1,100. So things will be changing. So don't be concerned at looking at every individual line. So I'll go through with you what this report looks like, because it's the first time for all of us. I try to highlight the things that I think should stand out. I broke this budget down into building first. So you'll see that I highlighted building 0 is what we call the SAU. Okay, so that's our function. Building 1 is the elementary. Building 2 is your middle school, okay? And building 3 is high school. Okay, so the first group that you'll see there that I highlighted, the SAU, building 0, that's all the SAU 0 functions. And if you go to page 4, at the very bottom, I highlighted that for you. That's the building total, okay? So that's just the SAU budget. Okay, you all see that? Okay, and then if you go to page 5, you'll see at the top I highlighted building 1, that's elementary school. So this is your elementary budget. I like to see it based on building, because I want to really see what each building is doing, so I can see what the elementary is doing versus the middle school versus the high school. And then if you go to page, I think it's 11. Just double check. Yes. Yep, at the bottom, at the bottom of 11, you'll see there's your elementary total. And then you'll see where it says the middle school, so that's your building 2. This year's the first year that we're splitting up, I believe. And correct me if I'm wrong, Jim, we're splitting up the middle school from the high school. Right. So we still have a little work to do with that, but you can see that, you know, we've got the accounts in and we're utilizing them, and so we'll have better record keeping for you to report and use for a baseline going forward. And then if you go all the way to page, I want to say 22.
25.
Which one is it?
25.
Nope, 22 first. 22 is the last page for the building 3, the total for just the high school. There's that line first, so I wanted to point you out to that. And then the page 22 is the end of what is called the budget report, but it's a detailed budget report, which means it has all the lines, every function, all the lines within the function. And then page 23 of the 25 pages is what's called a group summary. So I ran you 2 different reports how to look at the budget. So one is 22 pages and one is 3 pages. So you get the same information except for, as you can see, building 0, the SAU, you just see function totals, okay? But those function totals will match up as if you looked at the detailed totals, okay? So it's a preference on how you prefer. I've seen it, my experience has been, I give the group I'll give like a summary monthly, and then I could do quarterly, I could do detail, or I could gear it to however you want. I could email you the detail and print the summary. I'm here to, if you want me to change the format to anything else specific, I'd be more than happy to do that. This is just how I had to design the whole report. So I'm still kind of tweaking it a little bit. So if you want to see something that I might not have done or see it a different way, please let me know, and I'll be happy to make it work for you. But
This is going to be
Looks
great.
great.
Yeah.
For next year's budgeting and
Yeah.
yeah, because
explaining it to different.
sorry, I should have explained. Going across, I'll explain. You have the total, you have the original budget, and then you have a current budget. So if there were like budget adjustments, that would be the reason why you have the two columns. The period activity, I'm not sure if the reports are run as of June 30th, so therefore you're not going to see any period activity. But if you wanted to know, like, for the month, or if you wanted me to run it as of January 31st, then you would see the period activity would be for the month of just January alone. So that's what that column would show you. And then obviously the fiscal activity is what we've done year to date. And then encumbrances is what we've encumbered. So we've obviously have a liability out there that says we are obligated to have, this amount of money is obligated to a particular vendor. And then the variance is just the difference between what was budgeted versus what we're expending. And then the percent remaining. And we're pretty much on target overall for what we're spending because we're, more than halfway through the year. But again, you're going to see there's going to be a lot of negatives and pluses. Again, it just has to do with, we're going to have to do some journal entries because when we pulled the trial balance, not everything aligned. So we'll be working on that.
Excellent.
And that's the budget 101 in 5 minutes. So
And you've been living and breathing it for like how long?
2 days now. So I do apologize for getting it, bringing it to the meeting. So you really haven't had time to digest and look at it, but that's how much, I'm still tweaking it. It's still showing you. The capital reserve funds are part of this, and we're trying to figure out, can we pull that out? Because obviously it kind of skews the numbers with, the transfers into the trust funds and not the trust funds and things like that. So it's a work in process, but overall I was very excited to see this and have the data, so.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So traditionally, we have, through the budget process certainly and all, is treated the middle school and high school as one function area. There's some things that certainly overlap, like a foreign language teacher would teach both middle school and high school classes. Are their salaries broken into different, proportionally based on how many periods they teach?
That's a great question. Yes, they are. They're broken into FTEs. So if it's like a 0.4 middle school, then it'd be 0.6 at the high school. So depending on how many periods they are, we broke it down to the FTEs. So everything is being charged. So like next year, I did it for this year, even though you don't see it because you can see how I started it, but I have all the personnel in terms of benefits and everything split up based on their FTE, so that when I create the budget for your K through, what a 6 through 8 is going to look like, I know what that's going to look like based on those people already.
Okay. What about things like utility bills for that building? Do you proportion it based on the percentage of students in each school? Or?
We haven't done that yet. We haven't really there's a couple of those, like the electricity, the fuel, oil.
Mm-hmm.
We really haven't figured out I'm not familiar enough with the building to know, how many classrooms, if there's a way to see what's efficient, because we don't have an efficient building, so it's really hard to, estimate that. So we haven't gotten that nitpicky, but we do it with the supplies and ordering and things like that. But some of the overall building operations, we haven't really finalized it yet.
Mm-hmm. What approach you'll take? I'm assuming you'll take a similar approach like with the principal's salary and the electric bill. In some ways, proportionally, they're
Personnel is easier,
shared.
for sure, but yeah, it's the same thought process.
Okay.
Yeah. Because it's going to depend on how many classes I have for 6 through 8. For, like a 6 through 8 versus the 9 through 12. If I have more high school classes, then that's where you start figuring out of how many classrooms do I have. in that building, and then we just kind of do a proration.
Right. It might, I guess my 2 cents on it is, don't make it unnecessarily complicated, because the important thing is to know that it's the same building and to choose something that we can watch over time so that we can evaluate over time and not get stuck in it. In
Correct.
The minutia of it. Other thoughts or questions? I'd love to see it as a PDF to answer that question. I think that went by. You know,
A PDF, it'd be an Excel format.
even better.
Because a PDF would just be, I tried sending it, and it does take a long time to run these reports, because ironically enough, I learned, because it's hosted in the cloud, and when we send things out, it's only going over 10 megabytes, or gigabytes, whatever it is. Is it megabytes? 10 megabytes going out, 50 coming in? Meg, right? 10 meg. So anyways, what happens is this report has to go to Dallas, Texas, and then it's going to come back. So when I actually downloaded it, it took a long time for me to download it, and I exported it to Excel. Because when I do email it to you, an Excel actually would work better, and it works faster. And the file's a lot smaller.
You
So.
could PDF an Excel file,
Yeah.
just so you know.
Oh, okay, well, that's just,
Yeah, and that'd probably be even smaller.
Yeah.
would it?
But, well, the beauty of
You'd
the,
have to get it into the Excel file first. I get that.
If you have
And then PDF it?
Yeah.
print it to a PDF,
you
essentially.
just say, you select your printer and select Adobe PDF, and it'll make it smaller for you that way.
Okay.
Someone could show you how to do it. It's not that-
Well, no, I have I have like 5 different options. I have TIFF, I have Excel, I have PDF, I have some other ones that I'm not even familiar with.
Well, yeah, it's great.
Excel is nice because you can then,
I can edit it.
you can, I could take, if I have a particular interest in something, I can
You could
want to know
highlight it.
the ratio of this to
Right.
that, I can just make a formula and stick it
Yeah.
somewhere and
Yeah.
not have to bang my calculator. I'm really bad at.
Well, what I heard which you can do with this, and I haven't tested it yet, is that I can actually export it to Excel. I can change the format, and I can create formulas, and then I can import it back.
Oh.
And then it will run it based on that. So it's like I can generate, that's what I did with this, is I had to create the actual port from scratch and tell the system every little thing that I wanted. And you can do that by exporting and re-importing. So it's kind of interesting.
Becoming a little computer geek, aren't you?
Yeah. In my spare time, that's what I do. My husband's like, what are you doing? I'm like, don't ask.
Chris,
so.
is there complete safety as far as people getting into these accounts?
They can't get into these. This software system is hosted like in the cloud, as they call, and so they can't get into.
No one can access the cloud.
Yeah.
Well, it's secure.
It's secure, and
Password
I'll leave it
protected
at
and all
that
that.
because I really don't know that kind of
The other
experience.
thing is, going back to the group summary, where you
Yep.
get the 2320 SAU,
Yep.
can you explain that entire line? For example, the original total budget, the current total budget, what does all this mean?
The original operating budget.
Yes.
Okay, that's when I create the budget. Let's say the budget gets passed. Okay, that's the original. If I were to make, I would have to come to the board and ask for a budget transfer. Okay, so if I transferred funds from, say, technology to, and I'm just giving you an example, to building maintenance, you would then see what the current budget is. So you would see the adjustments. Okay, so that's the current budget. So that would have any adjustments in it. And then the period activity is if I ran it as of January, you would see what the activity was just for the month of January.
So at this point, you haven't done anything with that?
Correct.
Okay. And what does the physical activity, which is that money, what does that money represent?
That would be for, those are the monies that we've spent year to date. So as of when I ran this report, if you look at the bottom, I ran this yesterday. It tells you on 2/6 at 12/11 that we have spent to date fiscal activity. That's that column right there.
So you're encompassing $7,685,
I've encumbered that, correct.
and we're left with a negative through the variances.
Does that mean we overspent that account by?
A negative would mean you've overspent that account, but that's why I said don't be utterly concerned, because like for that example, when I drilled down into it, that is the software that we purchased, the Incode,
The difference.
okay? And that's an expense. An expenditure report is clearly just the expenses, okay? You don't see the revenue side of it. The revenue is that we took the money from the trust fund, so it's showing over here, but the expense is over here. So of that 86, 55,000 is money that is being offset in the revenue side. So you can't.
Yeah. It's not going to be.
So I'm working on trying to. I'm trying to incorporate that into the report so that it will offset, so you don't see that.
So you'll be giving this summary report monthly to the board?
I will do whatever the board asks. If you want to just see a monthly summary and then the detail, however, quarterly, whatever you feel.
Good.
It's up to you. You just tell me, and I mean, I can produce these, in the morning of a meeting, so it's not something that, because once I create these reports, I save the actual template of how I created it, so it's just a matter of hitting click, and then it
fills it in for you.
Produces it for me.
So you do all the cooperation as far as running this particular program?
Correct. Yep. So I have this report. This format is now saved as an expenditure report. So if somebody wanted to come in tomorrow and run it, they can run it. I don't need to be there. They just choose it. So, but it takes, creating the report itself is where it was time consuming. That I only had 3 days, and it was like crunch time because it wasn't running how I wanted it to run. And so, but now that you have it, it'll be a breeze, so.
It'll be great for us, but also I see it, for you, once this is created, you can start looking at the numbers from a higher level rather than being down in the bug dust of looking at invoices or what have you.
Right.
So you'll be able to take, like, for example, the middle school, just separating the middle school. So you could, if you see in trouble overspending or whatever with monies, you could send them a report, look what's happening with the middle school, or the high school, or the elementary school.
My goal is, I've heard when I've come on that a lot of people are not familiar with what's in their budget. So I've gotten a couple calls saying, how much money do I have in my how much money do I have in my wellness supplies? What the staff is going to be able to do is, my goal is to reach out to the secretaries, run the reports, I design the report, all I have to do is hit click. And then so if the librarian comes up and says, can you run me my report? She just hits library report, and there it is. It's going to be a snapshot instantly of what's been charged, to
all
date.
The POs are incorporated in there as they're being analyzed. How about the fact, is we still on with the freeze budget, we still frozen?
We are currently. Until I can get this 100% confident that I know where everything is and the reports are correct, we're still frozen because we don't have, these numbers are not still showing some of the encumbrances for the special ed. Jean and I, we haven't finalized those numbers yet, so they're not in here, so you don't see that, so. But I just want to make note that when a purchase order is entered, until it's actually posted, it will show in the encumbrance, but when it's posted, that's when it gets to the paid. So that's how it works.
And it won't be paid until the material is actually distributed from wherever
Until
it's
after
on.
we receive it, correct. Yep.
This is going to be a great tool to further improve the quality of really dialing in on budgeting.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Making sure we're
It's a valuable tool for me and for the staff so that they can.
School board.
Yep.
Right.
Yep, because based on these reports, I can run them so many different ways. I can just look at the elementary alone. I can look at 1,100 alone as a group, as all three. So I can see what our supplies are as a district, as a building. So you can really get detailed down. So, and eventually we'll get some more history over. So, and your budget will look similar to this next year when I create the budget. You'll see, the current, the revised, and the proposed. Be the same kind of format.
excellent. Any more questions on the reporting piece?
You're welcome.
All right. You have a summary that I've already hidden away here of the kind of the last 5-year history of the trust funds. Are there things that we need to highlight regarding that? It's handy to have in discussions of the repair and maintenance fund.
I provided it so that you could see for the when Dr. Hayes was requesting the use of the funds, so that was just for informational purposes.
Okay.
Does it
No, there isn't one, but we've added this dual purpose fund.
Hold on.
We've added that underneath there, the cap.
Well, I'm sorry, what was the question?
You know how on the lower left-hand column, the corner, there's this caps, and one
Yep.
says no cap, 25. We don't have the dual purpose fund listed over there.
Okay.
Just put no cap.
And just put no
yeah,
cap. So you just
to-
want me to
just
put
for
it there, put no
continuity's
cap?
sake, that-
Okay.
Because it, somebody, well, why doesn't that, you know, I don't know.
Yeah, that'd be a good idea.
Okay, sure.
Thank you, though, this is very helpful to see.
Okay, on to policy.
You have several policies here for your approval. It's a second reading tonight. The first one is curriculum development, and based on the review the last time, I think it was, we incorporated language that puts a specific responsibility with the Director of Curriculum and Instruction, where it actually belongs, so. Looking for you to approve that policy.
I'd like to make a motion to approve policy IGA curriculum development.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Pretty clear changes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
The next two are identical policies.
4-0.
They just fall in different sections of the policy manual. Don't ask me why that has to be that way, but that's how they seem to structure it. And it's about first aid and emergency medical care. And our nurses have reviewed this and made suggestions that, cull out some language that's no longer appropriate, but more appropriately adds in people who are trained in CPR and first aid and their role, and you're defining that in policy, so that's a good thing.
I'll make a motion to accept policy EBBC, emergency care and first aid.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 4-0.
I'll make a motion to accept policy JLCE, first aid and emergency medical care.
I'll second that.
Discussion on that one? I would be surprised if there
Might be a
were.
little different.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 4-0.
And the last policy is availability and distribution of healthy foods. Could be healthful, but
I love your note, you decide.
no, really, because it could be either, when you read through them, so whatever your preference is. The NHSBA, that's where I got this from, had healthy, so doesn't
Whatever
matter.
Cliff feels more
know.
comfortable
I've
with.
spoken my piece. We can start
Debate again?
well, if there was a motion on the floor, we can be sure that we'll make progress on this and not go back to discussion of which dictionary that we're referencing.
I make a motion to accept policy EFA, availability and distribution of healthy foods.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? I've spoken my piece.
I'm good, I think it is appropriately represented.
Hearing no commentary. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion
Thank
carries
you very
4-0. No abstentions or dissent. Okay. We have any resignations or other leave requests?
No.
We're ready for that. We have a manifest for January.
We do. Well, actually, January and February. I'll make a motion to accept the total of all manifests in the amount of $1,041,642.43.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? I look forward to the opportunity to review, different from our current, but some of these things in conjunction with reviewing the manifest. Great stuff.
Can I just ask, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, can I just ask, what is the consensus of the board? How do you want to see, and when do you want to see the reports? Just so that, do you want it monthly? Do you want it quarterly? Just looking for some feedback from you, what you would like, and I'd be happy to.
think about it? I don't know.
Yeah, I wanted, can I have some, I just wanted to look at it, like you said, I mean, it, yeah, I mean, I don't know, do you have a preference?
No, not at this point.
I mean, offhand, just instinctually, monthly seems a little too much for our level.
Yeah.
I don't know, because you're doing it, and, you know, but maybe for me, I'd be happy seeing something on a quarterly basis, I think, right now, unless.
Well, it's easy to do.
Right.
Absolutely, that's what I'm saying. I
So-
can leave it, we can leave it at it's quarterly unless you have a concern. I mean, if I see something, I'm gonna bring it to your attention anyway, so.
I didn't know whether we should, the board, I'm not going to be here, of course, but the board should go more technical with what they're doing in terms of laptops or whatever. I think that's something we should be thinking about from now till next fall or whatever.
I
I
didn't see
think
those
it's
laptops
time,
in the
I think it's
budget.
time.
Something to consider.
Something, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it is.
Um,
Once we get a new board, see.
I would appreciate it if you would email me these in Excel and have an opportunity to stare at it on my computer and think about.
So the summary in the detail report?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I
It
could do
doesn't
that.
weigh anymore in an email. Or
No.
you've got them handy, so. I mean, it sounds like it's not a lot of work, so.
Not now.
If,
No, not at all. I'd be happy
you
to.
know, if you generate extra, you know, if you do it weekly and we look at it once a month or once a quarter, it's, you know, it's easy, I guess, you know, so I don't want to choose not to look at it as frequently as, I mean, I almost think I might be on a, hey, Christine, you know, could you run me a fresh, and I'm guessing, you know, within an hour you'd have it dealt with, depending, you know, what you're up to. You know, so it would be, it's not.
It's a click of a button.
It's a click of a
literally.
button.
So.
Wouldn't be bad to see whether the board could make use of, for example, the mini Apple Pad, which is put it in your side pocket and walk right in with it, rather than having a pile of papers.
Oh, I don't want to
Cheaper.
see it on paper.
Yeah, might be
No.
cheaper, you know.
I will tell you that
Amazing,
the Apple
amazing.
iPad might be a little small because when it prints up on a screen, it's small. I mean,
Yeah.
and an Apple iPad might be a little too small. You need at least a screen of
Be
this
doing a lot of
size.
scrolling.
Yeah, and you got to scroll across, and I mean, and it's really,
Well, you could research it and see, you know.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, hey,
I think it's time.
I think from what I'm hearing is that we'll digest it and we can revisit it. And please feel free. I'll leave it that if there's anything that you want to see when you want to see it, please feel free to shoot me an email or give me a phone call and we'll go from there. But
Great.
I'll be updating the board as the process continues and I do more with it.
Awesome. Thank you. So we still have a motion on the floor for the manifest. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carries 4-0. Okay, and we have an enrollment report. Is there anything of note within that
No, the
document?
numbers that I tend to look at are the grand total, and I try to compare October 1 because the September number is not as meaningful, but October 1, we had 1,064 students, and now we have 8 less, 1,056. So there's been some in and out activity you can see there, but not
Are those
a great deal.
like special ed placements or?
No, if they were placements, we'd still be counting
Oh,
them here
okay.
as an out of district. So, no, they're people who move and people who move in, and that's basically it. So it's dropped by 8, but then again, as I look at the grand total, the number 1,056 is the exact number we ended the last school year with. So you always get some movement as the year goes through.
Mhm.
So,
I'm surprised how many people do come and go through the year, but
Yeah.
that happens. All right, on to calendar then. We, no school tomorrow.
Yep.
In case
Put that on
anyone
your
hasn't gotten
calendar.
that message yet.
Put that on there.
And the chili chowder challenge has been put off to the 16th, along with bingo. So come early and stay for the day.
And what time did you say it was on Saturday? Did you, I thought you had said 6, and this says 7.
It was 7 on Friday, so perhaps it's a little bit earlier on.
5 to 7:30. The Chili Chowder Fest?
Yeah, on
It's
Saturday.
5 to 7:30.
5 to 7:30, okay. Just wanted to be clear, yeah.
And bingo will be, again, on the 16th, not this Saturday, at 11:30. Be busy digging out instead, seemingly. Okay. Poetry Out Loud competition is next Thursday night. That's a lot of fun. If you have a chance to go to that, it's a lot of fun. Highly recommended. Any other items of note? The only other thing I'll put out there is it's on the marquee out front that please keep in mind that on March 12th from 7 a.m. till 8 p.m. is voting for the town warrant as well as the school warrant, election of officials, etc. Here in the town hall auditorium.
Yes.
Anything else?
Do we know when candidates' night is?
I certainly don't.
I haven't seen a date yet, no.
Okay.
I don't know.
Isn't it usually towards the end of February, early March, something like that? I think last year it was.
It's on school break week, at the end of February.
I think it was early March. Only because I had my appendix out last year. On Valentine's Day, I remember. And I remember being able to make it to candidates' night, which was a few weeks after that. So
Okay.
I want to say, yeah.
Be good to know.
Yes.
Yes.
As soon as we know, we will have to send it
Yeah.
along.
That'll be a good thing to add to the website and otherwise. All right. We have any other business this evening?
Did that warrant make it all the way around?
It's right there.
Okay, just want to be sure we're...
How about a motion to adjourn?
I'll second.
Thank you.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thanks very much.
Before
1
9.
before 9.